Thanks for coming out to Crazy Day event. I would like to introduce the maker of this, which is Arnie Lillo.
Thank you, Robin. Well, thank you all for coming out and being part of this. It's something I've been working on for a couple of years. Finally got it done. And the story I'm using about Crazy Horse was presented to me by Paul Nelson, and he's going to be the narrator for Crazy Horse. He works out at Fort Abercrombie, and he's a retired pastor, but he works out of Fort Abercrombie in North Dakota from Memorial Day to Labor Day, giving tours and speeches. So he's an authority on Crazy Horse and the Indian stuff. So he'll be the speaker for back here. So thank you all. Okay, this is Paul Nelson.
Thank you, Arnie. Well, it seems to me that this occasion today is kind of a dedication of all the work that he's done on the story of Crazy Horse. And I think that we should give him a nice round of applause for all the work that he does and his art that he has. So, I'm going to tell the story. Actually, the official title of the story is The Relationship Between Crazy Horse and Red Cloud. But there is going to be right away a disclaimer on all of this and the fact that Crazy Horse and Red Cloud did not get along. They didn't get along. So as we begin our story, we need to talk about the very beginning. Both Crazy Horse and Red Cloud were Oglala Sioux, or Oglala Lakota. And the Oglala, of course, is the biggest tribe of the Lakota. Red Cloud was born in the year 1820. Crazy Horse was born in about 1842. Red Cloud came into prominence when he was 27 years old. General William Harney, who later became known as the Butcher by the Lakota, wanted to get all of the Western Oglala together at Fort Laramie to sign a treaty to permit passage through their land. Of course, none of these people really wanted to do that, of the Oglala, including Red Cloud. However, there was one who thought it would really be a good idea to sign this thing and have the passage go through here. His name was Bull. And he was so adamant about the situation that he wanted to get people on his side, and that he was so angry that he started shooting his own people, including Red Cloud's father, whose name was Red Cloud, and his brother. And now after this happened, Red Cloud was to avenge the death of his members of his family. So he went about this in a very brave kind of a way, according to the Oglala. He came right up to Bull, and his son tried to stop him, but he didn't, and Red Cloud killed both of them. And at that point, he was declared a leader of the Oglala. Crazy Horse was born to a Minneconjou woman by the name of Rattling Blanket, and a holy man by the name of Crazy Horse. Now, when Crazy Horse was born, he had curly hair and it was light. So his name to begin with was Curly. And his mother died when he was 4 years old. Then his father remarried two sisters, the sisters of Spotted Tail, who was the Brule chief. Now, Curly was somebody who was kind of shy. He was a loner. Maybe because he didn't quite look like the rest of the children. But anyway, at the age of 14, he went off by himself for 4 days, and he had a vision. And in that vision, he was going to be a great warrior. But there are some stipulations to this great warrior. One of the things was that he was not to take part in the sun dance. He was not to take scalps. And he was not to adorn his body with war paint. And also in this vision, which was very important, was the fact that he saw that he was not going to be killed by bullets or by arrows, but by his own people who would be holding him down while he was killed. So this made him very brave in battle, because he knew that he wouldn't be killed in battle. So, at a little later, he was in his first battle. And in this first battle, he performed really well. And then his father said, "You know, I ought to change your name. I'll give you my name, Crazy Horse." And his father took on the name Worm to show his humility, even though he was a holy man. He called himself Worm. And now, since he was now esteemed as a warrior, his friends or the fellow warriors thought, you know, now he will start taking scalps. But no, he remembered his vision. He remembered his vision. His first brush with the white people was a negative one. It was before he became Crazy Horse. It was 1854. There was a wagon train, a Mormon wagon train that was going through the area. And on that wagon train, there was a cow, a sick cow that wandered off. And it wandered off into an Oglala camp or village, the village of Conquering Bear. And one of the visitors to that village shot the cow, killed him, the sick cow. But the owner of the cow came to the village and says, "Where's my cow? What happened to it?" And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's dead." "Well, then I want the person who shot him or killed him." He said, "No, we can't do that," Conquering Bear said, "because he is a visitor to this place, and we will not give him over." Well, the owner of the cow went off to Fort Laramie to get help. And there in Fort Laramie was Lieutenant Grattan, who had more power than brains. And he was sent out with 30 men to Conquering Bear's village. And he asked Conquering Bear to release the guy. Who is his name? Conquering Bear refused. But he says, Conquering Bear says, "I tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 2 horses." That wasn't good enough. They wanted the man. Then suddenly someone shot, killing Conquering Bear. And then that angered the village very much. And as a result, all 30 of Lieutenant Grattan's men were killed, including Lieutenant Grattan. This was the beginning of 30 years of difficulties between the Native Americans and the soldiers, and it all started over a sick cow. Well, once again, William Harney came with 600 people. Remember, he was called the Butcher. And he went into Curly's camp, or his village. While Curly was gone, Curly was out taming a pony. And he ended up killing men, women, and children all alike. And when Curly came back, he saw this. And then from that point on, he hated the white people. But as the years passed by, Curly became Crazy Horse, and once again he was great in battle, always going off fighting the enemy tribes, most often the Crow. And they were coming back one day from a raid on, I suppose, upon the Crow. And as they were nearing the village of Red Cloud, they saw that there was preparation going on. Preparation. Excuse me. Preparation going on for a coming out party for a 16-year-old maiden by the name of Black Buffalo Woman. And she was the niece of Red Cloud. Now, Crazy Horse had a certain amount of interest in this. He saw Black Buffalo Woman as being quite appealing. And the day of the celebration began. There was an old man. Now, you can take a look at all of these things around here and see if you can follow as I go about the story. There was an old man that was standing outside of the tent. Black Buffalo Woman was inside the tent, sitting next to a pile of gifts that she was to give out. And also beside the tent were 3 horses to be given as well. And the old man out there was giving a speech about the virtues of Black Buffalo Woman, and then also how it was the duty of the women to have children. And then when it was done with that speech, the father of Black Buffalo Woman gave a horse to the speaker, one of the 3 that were on the outside of the tent. And the festivities began. The festivities began with a dance. And then it was time for Black Buffalo Woman to come outside of her lodge and stand and meet all of the would-be suitors that came by. And of course the tradition was at that time to spend a little bit of time with her underneath the courting blanket. Now, Crazy Horse, being shy, he said, "This is the hardest thing that I ever had to do." It was harder than facing a well-armed enemy. But he was getting closer. And to his surprise, Black Buffalo Woman came out to him, wrapped the robe or the blanket around him, and spent a couple of seconds with him. Now he thought that he had a chance. But the women, the old women of the tribe, says there's no chance. He was not of the breeding or of the that Red Cloud would allow to marry his niece. You see, the marriage would be between 2 families rather than be just between a man and a woman. So he would have no chance, even though his mothers were the sisters of Spotted Tail, the Brule Chief. Still wasn't enough. Well, anyway, as the young men were going by the lodge, they were watched very carefully by Uncle Red Cloud, her father, and her brother. They were making sure that she would not get too interested in any of these that were not acceptable. And then Red Cloud saw that as Crazy Horse was coming by, they would spend more time underneath the blanket, the courting blanket. And it seems like they were reluctant to leave from the embrace. Black Buffalo Woman was definitely partial to Crazy Horse. Red Cloud said, that can't be. That would not be a politically good move. So one time, Red Cloud decided to have a raid upon a neighboring tribe, probably the Crows again. And he handpicked those who were going to go, those young warriors that were going to go on this raid, and he picked Crazy Horse to go. And he also picked No Water to go. Now, No Water was a person who was also interested in Black Buffalo Woman. But No Water realized that he could never measure up to Crazy Horse. But he had a brother who was an orator, who could do the speaking for him. And he spoke for his brother No Water and elevated him in the esteem of the tribe. So No Water was thought of highly, not because of anything he had done, but rather to whom he was related. And it so happened, as they were getting together to go on this raid, No Water and Crazy Horse included, No Water complained of a toothache. And the medicine man says, you know, you get your power from the fang tooth of a grizzly bear. So, I suggest you don't go on this raid because it might not be good for you. So it seems like he was rather reluctant, but he turned around and went back to Red Cloud's camp or village. And then it was another successful raid upon the Crow, and as they were coming back, there were runners that were coming out from Red Cloud's village to see how they had done, so they could report back to see what kind of festivities they could have. And one of the runners let it slip that No Water and Black Buffalo Woman got married. Crazy Horse was just like being shot with an arrow through the heart. And he knew that Uncle Red Cloud was behind this. He knew that he had pressured the 16-year-old maiden so that she would marry No Water. So as they got close to camp, Crazy Horse noticed that No Water, Black Buffalo Woman, were not there. They had gone off to another village because No Water was afraid of what Crazy Horse would do to him. So off he went. Now time passed, and once again, Crazy Horse showed himself well in battles and things like that. And 1866, there was the Fetterman massacre, so-called Fetterman massacre. The Fetterman was at one of the forts that was supposed to be taken down on the Bozeman Trail. In fact, this is when Red Cloud came into prominence too, because Red Cloud made the United States of America buckle under. He forced the army to take down those 3 forts. But Fetterman, he said, you know, Captain Fetterman, he says, you know, I can go through all the Lakota Nation and I will kill them all with only 80 men. So he left the fort with 80 men, going over the ridge that he wasn't supposed to go over. And when he got to the other side, Crazy Horse ambushed him, killing all 80, including Fetterman. So he really made a name for himself. And then in 1868, Red Cloud did something seemingly wrong in the eyes of Crazy Horse. He went onto a reservation, later to become the Pine Ridge Reservation. Gave up the Black Hills to go to there. Crazy Horse said that was never going to happen to me. So Crazy Horse was, once again, doing well out in the Army, doing things in battle. And one time he came to No Water's camp. Now, by this time, No Water and Black Buffalo Woman had 3 children. And so it was proper for Crazy Horse to come and visit those 3 children. But the old ladies of the tribe says, he's coming around too often. And he's giving her elk teeth as presents. And one time, when No Water was out hunting buffalo, Crazy Horse came into camp. Black Buffalo Woman left with him. And that was a degree of divorce when she left. She left her 3 children, rode out of camp, as pretty as you can please, with Crazy Horse. Now, usually, when this happens, the warrior would say, let her go. It would be poor taste for him to go and try to get his wife back. It would show weakness. But it appears that didn't make any difference to No Water, because when he got back to the village, he was very, very angry, and he took off after the 2 lovers, found the lovers in a teepee, and then he shot Crazy Horse right under the chin, up around his cheek, leaving a scar. Crazy Horse was unconscious for 3 days. And when he came to, Worm, his father, was there, and also 2 horses outside of the tent, which were given to him by No Water. And Worm says, you better accept those horses and end this thing with No Water and Black Buffalo Woman. So he did. He received the horses, and that was the end of him and Black Buffalo Woman. Did Crazy Horse ever get married? Yes, he did. He married Black Shawl. They had 1 daughter. It was the apple of Crazy Horse's eye, but at the age of 3, she died of white man's disease. And then in 1876, he was still wandering around the Black Hills in 1876, and of course, he performed real well in the battle of the Greasy Grass, or as we call it, the Little Bighorn, against Custer. But after that battle was done, the army kept chasing and chasing Crazy Horse all over the Black Hills, and he was getting hungry. They were burning his stuff that he was supposed to eat, and his lodges and all of those things for his people. So he finally said in 1877, what I need to do is go into Camp Robinson in Nebraska, which later became Fort Robinson. And once again, General Harney says, I want you to be a scout for us against the Nez Perce. He says, I don't want to do it. And then he changed his mind. He says, yeah, I will do it. But of course, Crazy Horse couldn't speak English. Soldiers couldn't speak the Lakota language. So somehow, when he said, I will go and fight the Nez Perce until they are no more. But for some reason, Gerard, who was the interpreter, says, I am going to go and kill the white men until there is none of them left. And now as he was coming into Camp Robinson, he was led to what he thought was the headquarters. But as he got close, he saw that it was a guardhouse. And he pulled back. And Little Big Man grabbed him, and then Crazy Horse grabbed the knife from Little Big Man and stabbed him a couple of times in the arms. And then he was held down by his people, and he was killed. His vision became a reality. Worm and his two mothers, Black Shawl, took Crazy Horse's body off into the Black Hills and buried him someplace, nobody knows where. Red Cloud lived on his Pine Ridge reservation until 1909. He died there at the age of 90. And he had one son called Jack Red Cloud. Well, that's the story. Any questions?
Paul, I heard that, I read someplace that Crazy Horse had a vision of some future time, several generations past, when all the tribes would come together in unity and they would be peace and harmony. Do you know anything about that?
No, I guess I can't identify with that particular one. Well, if there are no questions, I thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it.